How is it going, folks? Welcome back to Park to Prem, and welcome back to what probably is the biggest transfer window in our time here at Guernsey. Last episode, we ended the season number 11. We finished it, just as a little reminder, as champions of the Championship, Premier League bound, and well, since last episode, I've reached the point where we have the end of season review. So to kick things off today, let's look back at the season, shall we? Now, of course, last episode was absolutely bonkers. I think the plan of attack for this summer is to do 2 transfer specials, kind of 2 halves. I feel like this is the kind of summer that I don't necessarily want to rush through and get an entire window played in one day, edit it and get it up for the next day. I feel like I'd probably make bad decisions if we tried that. When it comes to decisions as well, in terms of this season, I have to say, I think we did some absolutely exceptional recruitment. I hate to sit here and just pat myself on the back and say, well done, Jack. But you look at the likes of Tommy Setford, who, as you can see here, one signing of the season. You look at the likes of Cameron Cooper, who came in for £230,000. Players like this guy made a difference this year. Brought in for £230,000. 7 goals in 11 appearances. Only 7 starts in those 11 appearances as well. He was critical to our end-of-season run-in, which ultimately is what secured us promotion. Of course, Gadia came in and did a really, really good job for us. Machete did well, McKillop, Darren Dixon. Peter Morrow didn't really get used all that much. A couple of players like that, players we brought in for depth, but to be honest, we never really had to use them. Another player who we brought in who I think was a smidge disappointing this year is Dale Owen, 26 years old. Peter Bubb is a freebie. Yeah, I mean, I think he scored in his live commentary debut and did nothing afterwards. Generally speaking, though, I think our recruitment was really, really good. A little bit nervous about the fact that with us being promoted, we are going to lose our affiliation with Man City. That does mean the likes of Yannick Schmid and Volder might be difficult to bring back in for another year. Of course, we did win the league on the final day. It was unbelievably close. You can see here the top 3 teams separated by 2 points. Our average home attendance was 5,668, which was only 91% full. I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to have a few more sellouts in the Premier League. Worth noting, Southampton won the playoffs, so both Norwich City and Aston Villa, who'd been pain in the arses at different points in the year, failed to get promoted. From a financial point of view, you can see here we made a lot of money, which is always good to see. New sponsorship deals, new TV deals, reputation on the rise as well. In terms of shirts that were sold, Aboubakari, very popular shirt, the number 7 Aboubakari shirt. Elsewhere, Cavan Williams, Tejera, Setford, Gadia, maybe a little bit of a surprise, although I guess we just have a massive supporter base now in the Philippines. Here is the team that we lined up with for this year. Of course, Tejera, a massive, massive part of our team. He got 16 goals from centre-back. Although a lot of those came at the start of the season. Certainly when we had the update to Football Manager, it impacted our potency from set pieces. But our strikers really stepped up this year. Cavan Williams, 24 goals, Gadia, 18. And just to look at the accolades, we did win Manager of the Month on a couple of occasions. Williams broke the record for most assists in the year. Ruben Sandell is our most expensive signing ever. Of course, he's just vibing in the under-21s, a player who I'm hoping will be a useful player in the future. Elsewhere, Club Awards, Tejera won Fans Player of the Season. He won Young Player of the Season. Yeah, not entirely surprising. This really was the Williams and Tejera year. 2 players who have monstrous physicals. And I think this season really showed how important physicals are for your players, especially a man like Williams. I know it's easy to label him as the assist merchant from corners to Tejera, but ultimately, he did also get 23 goals to his name. So it wasn't like he was a one-trick pony. This pony knows how to sit and paw. That's dogs, not ponies. But the point still stands. Here is, by the way, the Guernsey overall best 11. If you're wondering what it's looking like, I know people are going to ask, Jack, NLBM, what's happening? He's just rubbish, everyone. He's just rubbish. He's definitely worse than when he used to play for us. He has declined. Elsewhere in this team, we've got the likes of Tyler Forbes, who is still at the club. Abu Kamara is also at the club, although his contract runs out in a month's time. I don't think we're going to be renewing it. Obviously, you've got the likes of Pani, Harry Kites. How's Harry doing? I was going to say, how's he doing? He's retired from football. We released him and he quit. Also cool to see players down at the bottom here, the likes of Kyle Farquhar. Remember Kyle Farquhar? He's just vibing in the Scottish non-leagues. And Will Merry has also retired from football. A lot of people who played for us have just retired from football rather early. Robbie also retired. People play for us and then they quit football. Is that a reflection of my manager style? I hope not. Okay, this has officially been the longest intro ever ahead of the actual Park to Prem intro, but that is the end of season wrap-up. We're now going to get to the transfer special starting on June 1st. That is a couple of days away. Transfer window is opening a month after that, but there's going to be hopefully some free players to sign. And just as a little reminder, we got a tiny bit of money to spend. This is going to be interesting. Let's see how we get on. I'm not sure I've ever entered the Premier League as ill-prepared as our squad is right now, and truth be told, we're probably going to go back down no matter what we do over the next summer. So I think the aim of the game for this summer is really just to lay the groundwork, hopefully get in some players that if we do go down, will be willing to stay around and ultimately just scale the club up a little bit. Getting to the Premier League is worth more than £100 million per season. That's in terms of competition money, TV money. And with that opportunity there, it's a great opportunity to just scale up our facilities, scale up our wage spend. That is something we are going to have to do as well. Our wage budget sits at £340,000. We've got a whole load of first team players here who sit on the 1st of June with, well, let's be honest, League One level contracts. Most of these players are going to want to have their contracts renewed, and having had a little peek at some of these, they kind of want wages in the £25,000 to £35,000 a week range, which obviously isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you might be able to do the maths there. If 10 players want £35,000 a week, that would be our entire wage budget spent. So when it comes to players that we've got at the club, we have got to be a little bit picky with who we're offering new contracts to and how much we're actually giving them. The other thing to consider is if we just look through our players, a lot of them I gave top division wage rises to of 40 to 50%, knowing that because they're not on a lot of money at the moment, when we do get promoted, we would be able to afford those rises. Whilst it might sound like a lot, 50%, in Premier League terms, a 50% wage rise over, say, £3,500 really isn't that much. And you might have spotted it here as well. If we sort by contract expiry date, there's a handful of players who have really long contracts. I'm looking at the likes of Addons here, whose contract now lasts 6 years. You might be sat there thinking, Jack, how does that work? How can he have a 6-year contract? I can only offer 5-year deals. Well, he, along with a couple of other players, had contract extensions after promotion. Aboubakari's another one. He has had his contract extended now to 2039. And Darren Dixon, another player, who's now here to 2040. This man's got a 7-year contract at the age of 18. I hope he's good. Now, when I look at our starting 11, I don't see very many Premier League quality players. I think we've got to be a little bit realistic this year, that we're not going to be able to overhaul things massively. That said, there's certainly some key players. I'm looking at the likes of Teixeira and Setford, who I need to get on new deals. I need to lock them down, preferably without relegation release clauses, because it feels somewhat inevitable that we will be going down in the future. Volder and Schmidt are two players who are on loan from Man City. I've tried to extend their loans. Man City aren't talking to me at the moment about it, so we might need a right wing back and a centre back. Besides that though, we've got a young team here. We've got a team full of potential, and this is a long-term project. I feel like, yeah, I've got to invest in young players, give players a chance to develop, and one season in the Premier League for a lot of these players will probably do them a world of good. Another thing to consider is that in the Premier League, you actually get 9 subs, so squad depth is even more important at this level, and squad depth is something I think we are going to need to add. You might have noticed that the current first team is a little light on players, 22 players to be precise. I have demoted a few players down to the under-21s just for the sake of organising them. The likes of Jack McKenzie and Abu Kamara have contracts expiring at the end of the year. We're not going to be renewing them. I know the Brandon Charles fan club are not going to be happy, but at 27 years old, he wants to leave the club. He's got 1 year left on his current deal. He didn't really set the world alight in the Championship. Not necessarily expecting him to do that in the Premier League either. Sadly, a lot of these older players in the under-21s aren't going to have any resale value, but that isn't necessarily the end of the world. With our promotion, I have also asked the board for a load of new stuff. So you can see here, improved youth facilities and training facilities are in progress. Of course, we have also got the new stadium happening. We're currently planning to increase our youth level to Category 2, which is another good thing. And elsewhere, we're currently pending on improved youth recruitment. Of course, this is an aspect of the club that has been improving very, very rapidly. With us getting to the Premier League, with us getting a load more money, that is going to expedite that kind of whole process that little bit more. When I look at our current squad, I look at the likes of Williams, Aboubakari, Machete, Adam, Teixeira, Scott Williams and Setford, and I think you guys could be involved in a relegation battle in the Premier League. You might have noticed here, Gadia and Cooper both on the bench. I would love to find a new super striker, but whilst there are all these gaps and positions I would like to fill, I'm very conscious of the fact that even if we sign some good players in those areas, it's probably not going to be enough. So realistically, I think we need to get the wage situation under control, get a few key players on new contracts, then look to improve the players that are already at the team with some kind of squad players who will be willing to stick around if we go down. Whether or not that's going to be possible, I suppose we're going to find out now. I think it goes without saying the most important player to give a new contract to is going to be Teixeira. Wants to be a star player. Wondering if we can lower it down, which we can. He wants £30,000, but he does want the dreaded relegation release clause. and the yearly wage rise. Neither of those are things that I really want to give him. I'm going to try and remove the yearly wage rise. I'm going to try and remove the relegation release clause. And I also need a top division wage drop. I'm going to ask him if he would take a 25% wage drop if we get relegated. Because we have got a little bit more money to spend in terms of raw finances, I'm going to offer him a loyalty bonus up front. This would be a really good deal if we could get it done. I've suggested that. He now wants a match highest earner clause and 38,000. Maybe locking in the top division relegation wage drop isn't the best idea. I'm going to get rid of the sell-on fee because I don't want him trying to force a move. Remove the highest earner clause. Let's try and ask for the 30,000 he initially wanted. Will he be happy with this? I'll give him a big international cap bonus just because I don't think he's going to play for Portugal. We'll lower the appearance fee slightly. Team of the year bonus. You know what? If you get in the team of the year, £600,000. Suggest he still wants 38,000. I kind of want to set a hard limit of £30,000. I think if I start offering more than that for Teixeira as an important player, anyone else who wants to be an important player or even a key player is going to want more than that. And that would be kind of unsustainable. Okay, good news. He has agreed to that contract. Don't know why his agent hates me. I guess it's because I like to negotiate hard. Didn't get the relegation wage drop in, but it is a long-term deal. There is no relegation release clause. I see that as a bonus. Maybe slightly higher the loyalty bonus, but I think we do have to realise there's going to come a point here at Guernsey where we do actually have to start splashing the cash, and as we enter the Premier League, is probably as good a time as any. Kevan Williams, I've just noticed, is in the last year of his current contract. My concern with Kevan Williams is he's been amazing for us in the Championship. I don't see a way he can do it in the Premier League. I just don't think the numbers he's been putting in are sustainable. He's 30 years old as well, and given the fact he is a player who leans so hard on his physicals, there's a natural concern there that he will actually start to decline as a player. So I'm going to try and get him to accept regular starter for playing time. In terms of wage demand, he's asking for 24,000. I'm going to try and get him down to 18. He wants a 2-year deal. Let's try and make it a 3-year deal. He doesn't want a relegation release clause, which I suppose is nice. I suppose Williams is the kind of player who, age 30, I'd be less afraid to give a relegation release clause to, just because I'm not sure what his long-term future at the club looks like. But let's see what his agent says to this. Really wants the 2-year deal only. Let's see if we can get him down to 17 and a half. 2-year deal. He's accepted that. Okay, if we can get a few contracts done like this one, I'll be happy. Scott Williams has still got 3 years left on his current deal, so no immediate pressure to offer him a new contract. He's also not got a relegation release clause. Machete does have a release clause to teams in a higher division, but now that we've been promoted, that's a little bit less of a concern. He's got 2 years left on his current deal, the 19-year-old. I'd love to get him on a longer-term deal. His agent thinks he's going to want 26 to 33 £1,000. Let's see if we can make this happen. He wants to be a ball-winning midfielder. You can't be that, mate. But you can be an important first-team player. Oh, he wants to be a star. This concerns me immediately because is probably going to reflect in his wage demands. And unfortunately for us, upon talking to him, his agent wants a minimum release clause of £10 million and a relegation release clause of £6 million. Just doesn't feel worth signing this deal. I'm going to walk away. I'm hoping this won't be a common trend with our players. Tommy Setford, I do want to talk with about a new deal, but his agent's in a mood with me. I think this is down to trying to negotiate something earlier on in the year, so we can't offer him a new deal right away. Adam's got a deal to 2039. Abubakari's got one to 2039. So that's a couple of first-team players we don't need to worry about quite as much. I'm feeling a little bit calmer now that we've got a couple of those contracts offered out. There are a few players who I talked to about potential new deals earlier on in the season who don't want to negotiate right now. So still an ongoing process. Like I mentioned, the likes of Yannick Schmid, who we've currently got on loan from Man City, can't loan back right now, which is a bit annoying because apparently Man City think it's too early to discuss things despite the fact his loan's up in a month. When we get promoted, we are going to lose our affiliation with Man City, which could mean that if we were to get relegated from the Premier League, it's going to be tougher bouncing back up because we won't be able to get a load of these really good free players like Schmidt and also Volder, who undoubtedly made a really big impact this year for us. I'll be honest, I've just had a quick look at players available. I was expecting to have way more quality wanting to join us. Not looking amazing, at least at first glance. I mean, who knows? Maybe as the transfer window goes on, we'll look more sexy to teams, but our reputation really hasn't caught up with us yet. I mean, that was already kind of the case with us last year in the Championship, but just looking at things here, we are one of the worst rated Championship teams in terms of reputation, and in fact, there are 3 teams in League One, in Oxford United, Salford and Nottingham Forest, who have higher reputation than us. Yeah, this is going to make recruitment difficult again, I think. I do feel like one of the natural places to start is looking at the teams that were actually relegated from the Championship this year. Of course, there were a couple of teams who were surprise relegations. I say that. Was Portsmouth a surprise relegation? Not really, no. They were predicted to finish second bottom. They finished comfortably bottom. One team that was a surprise, though, was Burnley, a team that do have some pretty good players in their ranks. I have already, as you can see here, scouted their team just because I felt like it was worth having them on their kind of the radar. One player who did pop up is Charles Banda, 26 years old, Scottish international with 6 caps, probably already playing at his potential. If Volder is going to be leaving us at the end of his loan, we are going to need to get in a player, and whilst Banda maybe isn't quite as good going forward, he has got a decent first touch, got some okay dribbling, but defensively, and especially when it comes to the mentals defensively, he is a much, much better player. Better marking, better positioning. Tackling is the exact same as Volder as well. For £5.2 million, I think we could do a lot worse. Not entirely sure what his wage demands are going to look like. One thing that I think we are going to have to use this season is some instalments. So I think my plan of attack here is to use kind of yearly instalments, try and spread out payments a little bit more so we can maybe add a little bit more to our team. A player like Banda here, though, would not be a bad addition by any means. He's got a transfer value of 5.2 million. I'm going to offer 5.5 million, but 3.5 of it is going to be staggered over 3 years. What that should allow us to do is just spend that little bit more money. They've come back asking for 7 million because of the way we're staggering the payments. I'm going to go back with 5.7. They want more money. Can we negotiate this? Can we make something happen here? Please don't be a pain in the butt, Burnley. I said, please don't be a pain in the butt. They've got annoyed with me. Look, okay, Burnley, I'll give you £6 million, 2.5 million up front. Let me know what you think. When it comes to transfer listed players, there are some interesting players here. Jamel McGovern is just an absolute pace merchant. Not sure he's exactly what we need, especially for £9 million. Yeah, not the order of the day. Jose Maria Matteo here for Sociedad is another player who's kind of okay, but not really value for money. I feel like value in the market is what we're looking for here. I would love to sign 5 or 6 players for £5 million who are really, really good, as opposed to just signing 1 or 2 players for 10 to 15 million who probably won't want to stick around if we don't stay up. Just looking through the transfer listed players, so many of these players that are interested in joining us are transfer listed at Championship clubs, and well, the vast majority of them just aren't quite Championship quality, never mind Premier League quality, especially for kind of the transfer values they've got. In the Premier League, Fulham, Brighton, Sunderland were the teams relegated. Sunderland were a real surprise promotion last year, or the year before last. They actually stayed up 1 year, but now have gone down. Their key man, Ryan Peterson, looks absolutely amazing. He's valued at 43 million though, so not a realistic option. I am wondering though if maybe I should be scouting the rest of their team, just in case there's anyone good here. Why not? Right, scouts, go tell me what you think. Fulham were another one of the teams relegated from the Premier League. They've been a real yo-yo team. Their key player is Marcelo, who looks amazing, but again, just for the value, the wages, just beyond our means, sadly. I think I will still, though, just scout all their players. Who knows? I feel like we should just get as much knowledge on players that might want to join us as possible. The other team relegated was Brighton. They have already been relegated once in this save game, but they had similarly established themselves as a Premier League club. One player who I had been looking at was Reece Davis here, who has a value of 37 million. I'll tell you what, he is an absolutely ridiculous player at 27, this guy, Reece Davis. If I was, well, slightly richer a few seasons in the future, I would probably drop everything to get this guy at wing back because he looks absolutely nuts. But yeah, not a realistic signing right now for us. I am just looking at the other leagues around Europe just to see what kind of players might have been relegated who might have relegation release clauses. Hanover went down. Union Berlin went down as well. They've not actually been relegated in this save game at all, although as you can see here, they've struggled for a load of years. Their key man is Aymar Zakuani, who is 25 years old, German player. Doesn't look too bad. Super consistent, super good at important matches. Could he be a useful player? I feel like he's just not quite good enough. My scouts like him though. I know people really enjoyed last year's transfer special where we just looked through players for hours. This has got a similar energy about it already, and it's only June 1st. I've just remembered, I've come back on June 1st because players' contracts are expiring in a month. I probably should look at the players with contracts expiring in a month. That's why I came back now and I kind of forgot. I will say now, based on what I'm seeing here in terms of players available with a month left on their contract, I'm not super excited about what I'm seeing. That's probably the understatement of the year. So I was just looking through teams relegated in La Liga, and Jamie here, I don't know how we'll just call him Jamie. That's definitely not how it's said in Spanish. It's probably like Hammy or something. I don't know. Either way, he's 23 years old. He looks amazing. Super consistent. Loves important matches. Has requested to leave. Has, I assume, an active relegation release clause. Yeah, a 3.9 million. I feel like he could be a really good creative player for us. I know we don't play with kind of a centre attacking mid well, we do play with a centre attacking mid, but not the kind of player this guy is. But I'm wondering, could I train him to play as my deep line playmaker? And I know he's lacking positionally, and I know he can't really tackle, but I think he probably would be an upgrade on Percy Donald. With respect to Percy Donald, I mean, yeah, he'd be an upgrade. No, my lucky now won't want to join us now that we've had an offer accepted. Apparently our offer for Banda's been linked. Does Hammy want to join us? He does. Apparently he wants £52,000 to £65,000. Is it mad that I think he might be worth that? I mean, he does look really, really good. 18 passing, 16 vision, 19 determination. He's got some good traits as well, I feel like, to play potentially in the CDM position or as a deep line playmaker for us. Okay, apparently I need to bring in a player to help him settle, improve the training facilities, improve the youth facilities, send him on a language course. I'll tell you what, he's got quite a few demands here, hasn't he? Let's see if he'll just accept that. He will. Okay, I'll teach you English, mate. I'll do it personally. As you guys know who watch the videos, I have a firm grasp on the language. He wants a relegation release clause of 17 million and a release clause to teams in the Champions League of 28 million. As much as I hate that, given the fact we'd be signing him for £4 million, it would be some pretty good money if we could make it happen. I'm going to have to give him a monster contract, aren't I? I'll offer him £45,000. I'm not giving him match hire Sterner. Not giving him a sell-on. I won't ask for the optional extension. I won't even ask for this, because I think if we got relegated, we'd just cash in on him. As mad as that might sound, assuming that he'd actually try and force a move. What does his agent think? £57,000. That's a lot. I'm going to be cheeky. I'm going to offer 45,000. But what I will say is, look, if you start playing for Spain's national team, in fact, if you play 10 games for the Spanish national team, I'll give you £55,000 a week. And also, Brucey bonus here, international cap bonus of £21,000. Can we get an ooh? Woo! That's a sexy contract. He hates me. 47,500, signing on fee 1.7. This is already a mental contract that I probably shouldn't be doing, but I do really like the look of him. I also know I shouldn't get my heart set on him, because there's lots of other teams interested that are undoubtedly more sexy than Guernsey. He is really, really good, though, for 3.9 million. I kind of want to go and talk to Vallecano about any more of their players. If they got more sexy players, I'm now looking through their players. None of them are as sexy or as good. I can kind of see why they got relegated. Now, the Euro Under-21 Championships are going on. I probably should take a look at all the different Under-21 squads. There might be some very, very good players available. And now that we're big time and, you know, Premier League and stuff, maybe they'll actually want to join us. The board have rejected my request to improve the youth recruitment. I'm going to beg them. I really encourage you to reconsider. They've reconsidered. I'll tell you what, I love it when you've been at a club for like 10 years and Football Manager. You can beg for anything off the chairman. It's great. With Norwich failing to get promoted, I was looking at Kane Fullerlove as a potential superstar striker of sorts. They signed him for £20 million from Arsenal this year. They want £24 to £36 million for him. Unfortunately, he has no interest in a transfer. Our offer for Banda has been now negotiated by Burnley. Then, tell you what, Burnley are very annoying in negotiations. Burnley, why are you like this? Are you trying to hurt me? You know what, Burnley? I'll just give you the money that you're asking for. How does that sound? They've asked for... You've upped his transfer value. You know, I'm not doing it. I'm not paying you £7 million for him. He's not that good. I'm not spending a fifth of my transfer budget on this man. He got a 6.83 rating in the Championship. No, thank you. Machete's agent wants to talk with me again. Look, the demands were unreasonable before. I'm going to ask if he'll lower the wage demand slightly. Maybe. I mean, the issue really isn't the wage demand. It's actually the release clause that he wants. Machete, I can't get rid of these. You know, last transfer special I talked about being able to remove these clauses. In the winter update, I feel like this doesn't work anymore, which has made me very, very sad. Also, Wade Zwane hates me. That is very, very strong. Hate is a strong word. I don't like you either, Wade. I'm walking away from negotiations. I don't like Wade. I've decided. He hates me, I hate him. I know Hammy here is a lot of money, and I probably have offered him quite a lot in wages. He is absolutely ridiculous. Like, if we could sign him for £4 million, it'd be one hell of a signing. You can see he started his whole career at Vallecano, got promoted with them a couple of years ago. Even when they've been relegated, he's not had a bad season by any means, and he's 23 years old. He's ridiculous. I mean, he could actually play as a shadow striker for us. It probably wouldn't make the most of his vision, but you can just see here, he's such a good player. I am starting to get attached mid-transfer, which we all know is a very dangerous thing to do and will result in heartbreak in the near future. Wade wants to talk again. Wade, I don't want to talk to you, mate. I don't want to talk to you. Leave me alone. Just looking through some of the players that my scouts have looked at and really highly recommend. One man has stuck out at me, and it's Emiliano Montero. He's 18 years old. He's probably not what we need right now, but he is a very, very good defensive midfielder who at 18 years old, for £1.3 million would just be a bargain. I think I'm going to sign him. I think I'm going to do it. If he actually wants to join us, maybe this is the beginning of the South American era. We all know this point in a Football Manager save where you're just sexy enough outside of Europe that South Americans want to join you. And from the looks of it, Montero wants to join us, although he thinks he should be an important player, which, not realistic. Emiliano, squad player. He's accepted it. Good lad. He wants £9,000, which I don't love. He's also locked in a relegation release clause. Why are you doing this to me? I hate the fact he's got a minimum release clause of £10 million. That said, we are agreeing to sign him for £1 million. So worst case scenario, we get relegated and still make six-fold profit on him. Best case, he becomes a club legend and is here forever. And to be honest, he wouldn't be a bad little depth option. I don't think. I mean, as far as deep line midfielders go, at 18 years old, he's very ready-made for this role. Okay, Williams has signed his new deal. He is now the highest earner at the club, at least until Tejera signs his deal. But for what he's offered us, he probably is worth £17,000. I just hope he can do it in the Premier League. But I guess the safety net here is, if he doesn't do it in the Premier League, he's only then got 1 year left on his contract. It's not like we're stuck with him on £17,000 for a load of years. I was just looking through our team of potential resale players. Mason Burstow is someone who I wouldn't be adverse to getting rid of. 29 years old, valued between 2.2 and 4.6 million pounds. Of course, signed for £16,000. Did an okay job in the Championship, but currently is just our fourth choice striker. And if we're being realistic for a moment, he's nowhere near Premier League quality. So if we could get something close to his value, it wouldn't be a bad thing. The only thing really, I guess, making me not want to sell him is the fact that we do have a lack of English players. Obviously, we have a few Scottish players, a few Welsh players, a few Northern Irish players too. But I would like to get in a few more English players, given the fact we are an English football club. We lack the domestic players here. And longer term, homegrown status is going to become important. We are going to need players who are homegrown in nation. I suppose the advantage here is that we have signed a lot of younger players who have become homegrown at nation. But, well, despite that, yeah, I don't know. I would love to get in a few more English players. The issue is, as you'll know if you play Football Manager, the premium on English players is just ridiculously high. I think our best bet for finding English players is kind of looking at the likes of, well, Man City, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, the big teams who have lots of English talent that comes through that isn't good enough for them, but realistically is still Premier League quality. The issue with those kind of players is their wages are quite high. Also, a little bit of news here. Luke Shearer, who's been director of football at the club for 9 years, I have decided to let go and bring in Osman Ramage. And the reason I've decided to bring in Ramage is because of his judging ability and potential. And the reason for doing this is I'm going to ask him to provide the player reports. If we just look at his ability to judge players' ability and potential, it's way better than any of our other staff members here in terms of the coaching staff. So what it will mean is that we get more accurate kind of star ratings for players already at the club. Given the fact he's just joined the club, he is going to have to get a bit of knowledge with the players, but it should mean the star ratings are more accurate than ever, especially when it comes to potential, which, well, with our current predicament, is a rather important thing. My scouts really do love the look of Montero, so I think we are going to sign him even with those release clauses. I think he could be a useful squad player potentially, but definitely a more long-term signing. But £1 million is a bit of a no-brainer. There's a load of players here who I have just been scouting through all the Sunderland players that we looked at previously. You can see a lot of them have no interest in joining us on transfer, which is a bit of a shame because I've just spent a lot of time and a lot of money just scouting them all. Potentially good news, Hamé. I don't know if it said Hamé. They're going to say it differently every time. Waiting on a work permit for him, which I think means he's going to join us if he gets the work permit. Didn't check if he needed a work permit, just assumed he'd get one. He's a ridiculously good signing. I feel like we've got our first really good player. Obviously, the release clauses are a bit of a concern, but for £4 million, bargain. Okay, Tejera has signed his contract, £30,000 a week, 5-year deal, no relegation release clause. We needed to get this guy tied down to a new deal. This is really good news. What it does mean is that probably our best player in our team, at least in the team that got promoted, is here for the foreseeable future. I like the fact he's committed his time to the club. He's adored by the fans. He likes the club. Everyone's a winner. Okay, Montero's been granted a work permit. That's some really good news. Not the most expensive signing, but I think a useful squad player at the very least. One player who could have a really bright future at the club. I will say, he's had a rough life in Uruguay. For 18 years old, he looks like he's seen a lot. Banda, by the way, has made a move to Sheffield United. Sheffield United just stayed up in the Premier League. Am I going to live to regret not signing him for £7 million? Potentially, but when you look at his performances in the Championship, I don't think he's necessarily a safe bet, and he's not of the quality where I feel like I need to drop absolutely everything to try and sign him. Okay, Montero is in the building, 18 years old, super consistent. There's a lot to like. I hate the fact he's got a release clause in his contract. That is something I would love to get rid of. Looking at him as a roaming playmaker, if he can improve his physicals, I think he could be really, really good in this area of the pitch. I think for now I'm going to train his quickness. I'll probably alternate that with his endurance so that we get kind of acceleration and pace development and also stamina and work rate. At the moment, he's a bit of an immobile player, but that is certainly something that at 18 years old, he's got a bit of time to work on. Just continuing to look at right wing-back options. Obviously, we've got Vaughan's in on loan. We've got Volder in on loan. So we are actually potentially looking at 2 right wing-back options. Someone who's a bit more depth, someone who is probably a starter right away. One player who is on my radar is Ryan Hunter. He is currently on loan at QPR from Man City, our affiliate, which is why I kind of already knew a little bit about him, because obviously they're our affiliate, Man City, so we get info on them. He was a player I looked at potentially loaning last summer. Apparently his value is between £45,000 and £450,000. For that price, I'm kind of willing to overlook the fact that he's injury prone and maybe give him a shot. Yes, he's not played amazingly in the Championship, but at 20 years old, bit of room to grow still, although he is going to be 21 this summer. Like the physicals a lot, like the fact he's got some decent leadership. The price is very, very enticing too. So let's see what kind of money Man City might want for him. I mean, if it's £500,000 I have to pay, I'm kind of okay paying it. Since we are penny pinching though, I will just try and stagger out the payments a little bit. I'll give them £500,000, but only £250,000 of it up front. I guess the big moment now is, what are his wage demands going to be like? Is he going to be expecting to be a regular starter? Is he good enough to be a regular starter, I suppose, is the other question I have to ask myself. When I compare him with Volder, very, very good technically, very, very good mentally, but just lacks a little bit, I think, in the physical department, both in terms of pace and also his aerial ability. But it's a really, really cheap deal. So there's a little bit of risk taken involved, but really it's not a massive risk, I don't think. I say all of that knowing that the wage demands still have to come in. Okay, good news here. He wants to be kind of a squad player. He's not expecting to be a starter. Has got a soft relegation release clause that locked in his contract and a minimum release clause. I wish I could just remove these somehow. I think for the price, I'd just sign him, to be honest. I think for £500,000, if we sold him for 10 million, we'd probably consider that a monumental win. Down the line, there might even be the option to negotiate that out of his contract. I'm going to lower the wage demands a little bit if I can to then potentially open up the opportunity in a few months' time to offer him the £10,000 he wanted originally, with the caveat that we will remove the release clauses. He does want a wage after reaching a certain number of league games, which I don't love, especially because he might play a little bit for us, but I don't know. 30 league games, you can go on to £15,000. Hopefully we'd be giving him a new contract before he plays 30 games. What does he think of that? He hates me. Okay, negotiated away a little bit. £8,500, 3-year deal. Did have to offer him £16,000 after 25 games rather than £15,000 after 30. Can't get rid of the release clauses, but I think for the price we're paying there, he'd be a good little addition. And he is the kind of player who, if I do go on to get a starting right wing back and we get relegated, I'd like to think that we'd be able to keep Ryan Hunter around and he would be more than good enough to be a regular starter in the Championship. Okay, we have had an offer for Brandon Charles. I have been offering out a couple of players, but no one really attracting interest. It's £125,000. It's a drop in the ocean in the grand scheme of things, but I'd rather end things amicably than holding him against his will for another year. He's not been happy at the club for a while. He's had his time in the sun. He's been a great player for us over the years, but yeah, this year, only 6 appearances. Time to move on, I think. The Brandon Charles era might be coming to an end. Okay, another signing confirmed. Ryan Hunter, £500,000. Real bargain signing, to be honest. For that price, I know he's injury prone. There's a small risk there. But he offers us some depth at right wing back that we need desperately. And he is the kind of player who, if another right back doesn't jump off the page at us, I wouldn't mind starting the season with him. Whether or not I'd want to go through an entire Premier League season with him as our starting right wing back, probably a little bit more of a question mark, but certainly as a squad option, I think he's a great signing, especially, as I said, for that cost. £500,000, I'm happy. Our training facilities have been upgraded, but that's not the main news. The main news is that Hammer is going to sign for us £4.2 million, £47,000 a week. This is a massive amount of money, but I don't think I'm going to find a player as good as this guy. I mean, look, the wages are high, but the actual value in terms of how much we're spending on him is low. He is a player who I think we will ultimately train to play as a defensive midfielder, potentially as a deep line playmaker, may even experiment with him as a roaming playmaker, because as you can see here, as a roaming playmaker, he ticks a lot of boxes. 23 years old, 19 determination, professional personality. It's very rare that I overspend. I feel like very often I'm very tight with my money, but this is the kind of player that I think is just worth throwing a load at. Even if it doesn't work out, even if we end up getting relegated, we'll get £17 million from his release clause. Yeah, this is the kind of man that I'm hoping could keep us up. Unsurprisingly, he's joined the club. He is instantly our best player. Like I said, currently kind of thinking he will play as a defensive midfielder for us. There is also the option to swap him with Aboubakari. Maybe Aboubakari comes in to play that defensive midfielder position that he did play for us once upon a time. Although I do feel like he is probably better suited to playing slightly higher up the pitch. Oh, I've got a dilemma here, haven't I, as to what I do. I've signed a player without a plan. You guys can let me know what you think. Obviously, training him to play defensive midfielder is maybe going to eat into his ability a little bit, but I think within our system, we've seen how vital kind of having the 2 defensive midfielders is. I suppose the other alternative would be to try something more like this kind of shape. But to be honest, I love how well the shadow striker works off the front 2 strikers. I mean, there's a reason why this year Aboubakari's got 18 goals, and it's because the roaming playmaker, the shadow striker works well in this system. Ultimately, I think our most likely approach would be something like this. And I know that some people won't like it, but I feel like it is probably just the best thing for our system. Either that, or I just go asymmetric. But I do feel like Hamé in that position won't be as good for us defensively, which is something that I do feel like we kind of need. Either way, it's a dilemma. Let me know what you think you would do. I mean, he's got so much quality. I was going to sign him anyway. The kind of player who could potentially keep us up. I want to believe. He really is that good. Of course, the release clause of £28.5 million to Champions League clubs is not ideal, but when you look at him, we've just signed him for £4 million. If I sold him for £28 million, it would be hard to be upset. So with those current transfers, still looking for a centre-back, still looking for a right wing-back, still looking for a striker, but the midfield is looking very, very strong all of a sudden. Of course, we've got Ryan Hunter in for a little bit of depth. Montero as well adds a little bit more depth in the midfield. I feel like, so far, so good. I think the other thing to consider is the 3 signings that we've made. We've signed for a little under, I think, £6 million, which is, well, it is rather cheap. And what it does mean is that when I look at the transfer budget of £20 million, when I look at the remaining wage budget, there is still a lot of room to bring in more players and, well, hopefully fill those gaps in the team that do exist. I am still hoping that we might be able to get Volder and Schmid back in on loan. Ideally, they would be the 2 perfect players to fill the 2 gaps at right wing back and centre back, but whether or not we're going to be able to renegotiate loans with Man City is kind of up in the air. Yeah, probably should be looking at centre backs, probably should be looking at striker as well. I'll level with you. I'm looking through the centre back options that we've scouted. Very, very underwhelmed by what I've seen. So I was just having a look through national teams, and a player who's popped up on my radar is Miller Anthony here. He is the Scottish national team goalkeeper, 30 caps, 23 years old, currently plays for Hearts, and his value is very, very low with low wages. Isn't it player who loves important matches, is consistent as well. I have got kind of a lingering doubt in the back of my mind about Setford, the fact that he keeps trying to force this move, asking for more and more money, and even just for a bit of competition in the goalkeeping position. Getting in the Scottish national team goalkeeper for this kind of money kind of feels like a sensible bit of business if we can make it happen. I'm going to make an offer and see how much Hearts want for him. Apparently he has a release clause of £15 million, so I'm going to hope that this guide transfer value is close to being accurate, and in fact it looks like it might be. I'm going to offer them $1 million up front and another $1 million over the next 3 years. Whether or not he now wants to join us, whether or not he'd be happy being a backup, kind of remains to be seen. But for £2 million, I mean, I can't say no. Another Scottish player I was looking at was Miller Girdwood here, relegated with Sunderland, 21 years old, player who has played a lot of football for the Scottish national team, 13 caps, 5 goals already. Quite a lot to like about him. He's a similar mould of player, I think, to a Boubakari. I mean, when you compare the two players here, there is a similarity. However, 6.8 to £10 million. It's just a bit too much. Over in the Slovakia national team, there's Jakub Gaspar here, who has 17 finishing and is 19 years old with 5 caps already. He looks rather exciting. For the price as well, he could be good. You know what? I'm making an offer. This is the summer transfer window where I'm going to end up signing a load of young players, isn't it? A lot of you were waiting for it. What season was it going to be that Jack starts to hoard players from Europe? The answer, season number 12. We've had a bid of £650,000 accepted for him. Will hopefully get a work permit on appeal. The kind of player who I'm going to scout and prioritise scouting. But for that kind of money, he looks like a bargain buy, and he looks like he could have the makings of a really good striker. I mean, the nice thing is, now that we're a Premier League club, we do have just a bit more pulling power to be able to sign these kind of players. We've got Joel Guinchard here. Definitely not said that correctly. Swiss international player, 19 years old, 7 caps. He looks like a good little player. Value, though, not quite as good as some of the other players we're currently looking at. Over in Bulgaria, there is Vladislav Rabchev. Fantastic name. 17 years old. Turns 18, actually, at the start of July, so he might not want to talk to us until he turns 18. I've noticed this year in Football Manager, a lot of kind of players just don't want to discuss potential moves until they hit 18. It feels like an arbitrary age where they're happy to kind of maintain their current development. Nevertheless, 17 years old, 1 international cap, great heading, great tackling, some really good leadership and determination as well for a 17-year-old. He looks really, really good. Will he be interested in joining us? Apparently, he doesn't want to join us because he wants to continue his development. He's definitely the kind of player who, as soon as he turns 18, he will then suddenly want to join us. And whether or not he'd start for us, I mean, he wouldn't get near our first team to begin with, but he looks like the kind of player who could start for us in the future. A couple of players in Romania who don't look too bad either. Probably going to get scout reports on some of these. There's David Bakur here, who is, 21 years old at the end of August, so he's, you know, not the youngest player in the world, but has some crazy physicals, some really good technicals as well for a striker. Elsewhere, the goalkeeper here, Spataru, looks like an interesting option. 22 years old, currently playing for Cluj. Value a little bit on the higher side potentially, but nevertheless could be a very, very good player. Someone that we should probably have on our radar. I don't want to say I'm offended, but Jakub Gaspar has turned down the option to come and sign for us. That one stings a little. Elsewhere, Miller Anthony, the Scottish national team goalkeeper, is interested in talking to us, but does have a couple of reservations about negotiating terms. Let's see what kind of game time he wants. Is he happy to be first choice? No, he wants to be a star. How about important player? No, he really, really, really wants to be a star. Why can I now not lock in, like, suggest terms on star player? Do I need to give him another promise? Look, I'll play you in your preferred role as goalkeeper with sweeper keeper. I gave him what he wanted. I don't understand what's happened there, Football Manager. Please explain. We have, by the way, now set a record high for spending of 7.5 million. Of course, a lot of this is for next season, but the game's not ticked over seasons yet. But yeah, £7.5 million spent. That feels like a massive amount of money. When you look at our bank balance, it probably is a massive amount of money. Of course, over the course of the next 12 months, we will just have a steady stream of Premier League money coming in, though. Now that I've finished going through the national teams and looking at any teenagers that might be available currently playing for European clubs, probably should look at the whole striker thing. There's a few French players here who are available, but not kind of wow-wee-wad by any of them. There's some okay players here, but nothing super exciting. Patrick Fallon here, absolute speedster, 24 years old, consistent, loves important matches. My concern really here is, obviously, we have Williams, who's a bit of a speedster. We have Gadier, who's a bit of a speedster. And we have Cooper, who is no kind of spring chicken when it comes to his pace either. There's only so far that pacey strikers can take you. I wouldn't mind getting someone with a bit of physicality similar to Williams who can perhaps hold up the ball a little bit better for us. I was just looking at the England under-21 squad because we just got a match report back from McKillop, who's been playing for the English national team. A couple of players who jumped out at me here, actually. I was just sorting by value. There is first Callum Doddy, who I've already scouted a little bit. 20 years old. Interesting striking option. The kind of player who I don't think would necessarily be the worst pressing forward in the world, to be honest. Has some really good technique, though. 20 years old. His value is really, really low. He's currently on loan from Newcastle. He's not a bad player by any means, although this year you can see he's not really lit the world up in the Championship. But for a cheap English player, bit of squad depth, probably could do a lot worse. The other man who's caught my eye, who's probably a little bit better, is Mazzini here. 22 years old, on loan from Chelsea. Probably going to be, I assume, sold by Chelsea this summer because his value is so low. I do need a backup left-back. I mean, we do have a left-back option or two, but really we have been relying on Adam mostly. Mazzini is a player I think could offer a little bit of competition in this part of the pitch as well. At 22 years old, maybe some room to grow. And the value for him looks rather low. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to try and get something done. The concern here is the wages. Right, Mazzini, what's the damage? How much am I going to have to pay for you? I'll tell you what, that is absolutely nothing, isn't it? How about 150,000 and then 150,000 over 2 instalments? They've accepted that. Chelsea have accepted that very quickly. Do they know something about this guy that I don't, or is it just a case of Chelsea have hoarded so many players they just don't care about this man? I know he's inconsistent, but for a backup left-back option with our current budget situation, I think you could do a lot worse. Obviously, it all really now hinges on the wages. I think I am also just going to make an offer for Doddy here and just see how much Newcastle might want for him, simply because, well, I'm kind of curious by the wages, and if the wages were reasonable or certainly not too extreme, I'd probably sign him for £800,000. Another one of the players here who we have got scouted in the under-21 setup is Anane. Unfortunately, he's super inconsistent and injury-prone. Two things that I'm not willing to overlook together. Kern Holwell here is a 20-year-old player who's currently on loan at Barnsley from Leeds. Not a bad player, but I probably shouldn't hoard too many average players. I probably need to actually try and sign some quality. Whether or not there's some affordable quality in this setup remains to be seen, although Ryan Nelson here, is it just me or is he very good? Like, he's a good little centre-back option, right? I'm not going crazy here. I mean, compared to Schmid, who he'd potentially be replacing, yet maybe, of course, he's not quite as good. But he is 20 years old and he's available for maybe £2 million. I think it might be the 20 bravery clouding my judgment, but I do like the look of him. I'm going to get a scout report. Minor concern here. Mazzini wants a minimum release clause, wage rise, and a load of other stuff. Oh, this is gonna end in tears, isn't it? He wants to be a star player. I'm not even sure if he'd be good enough to be our starting left back. Okay, I'll improve the coaching team. He really wants a release clause. Let's see the damage. It's just not worth it for a backup left back, is it? It's just not worth it. Doddy's the other player that we were looking at, this striking option. He actually really doesn't look that bad at 20 years old. What kind of money does he want? He wants to be a star player. That fills me with dread immediately. Again, another player who just wants these kind of release clause bits in his contract, which for some players I'm not that fussed about, but for English players, which naturally carry a premium, often you can get more money than what they're really worth from other English clubs, I don't think it's even worth just kind of facilitating those kind of contracts. Frustrating. I've been in proper transfer window mode, I feel like, this kind of session that I've been playing of FM, to the point where I've kind of lost track of things and I have no idea how long this episode's been. Has it been a long episode? Has it been a short episode? I don't feel like we've signed a load of players, but what I do think we've done is do a lot of the groundwork with the squad, kind of make a lot of decisions, which now set me up in a way where going into the next transfer special, which will be coming your way tomorrow, kind of know what I need to address. I need a right wing back, I need a centre back, I need a striker. Get those three things, I'll be happy. Whether or not those three things exist in the kind of quality that has a chance to keep us up remains to be seen. But I feel like I've signed Hamay, so no matter what else happens this window, it's been a successful transfer window. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself going into the season. Brandon Charles is leaving the building, by the way, to AFC Wimbledon, £125,000. Thank you for your service, Brandon Charles. Sad to see him go, but a player who's not really been in the first team for, well, quite a while at this point. Joined us back in the National League, had a few very, very, very potent seasons, let's be honest. He is a big reason we are where we are today. That said, the fact that he's now taken a move down to League 2 probably shows he's a little bit behind the kind of level of player that we probably should have in the team right now. Okay, apparently Tommy Setford's had an offer made for him. I say apparently, he has had an offer made for him. The value of this offer is over £9 million from Everton. Apparently his preferred destination would be Real Madrid. Are Real Madrid really interested in Tommy Setford? Apparently they are. I mean, the money from Everton just isn't good enough, is it? Valued at £12 million, they've offered £9 million. He's got 2 years left on his current deal. I will probably offer him a new contract if it can be agreed upon. I'm going to just ask for 20 million. I'm going to be cheeky. The fact they've not told me to go away immediately makes me tempted to keep pushing my luck here. Everton, 18 million. They have actually bid 18 million, but it's in a load of instalments, which I can't do. I mean, there's interest in Tommy Setford. I might live to regret this because I probably shouldn't be selling him. I'm going to offer him out for 20 million and see if there's any nibbles. I did think that would be a bit too much money. Turns out it was a bit too much money. Okay, I offered Setford out again for 18 million. No one bid on him. Probably a situation that will change or at least be a bit fluid over what remains of the summer. I say what remains. It's only the end of June. Have we even ticked over into the new season yet? We haven't. I'm going to get to that point to end the episode today, I think. It's only a few days away. Continuing to look at players, a man who was on my radar last season, and I didn't buy him just because he wasn't interested in joining us, was Jose Montenegro. This guy is a Peruvian international, 22 years old. Lots to like about him, a little bit of potential, valued at only 650k. Don't know if we necessarily need a player like this guy, and also question marks over whether or not he'll get a work permit, but for £650,000, I reckon he's just worth a punt. A player who might have some Premier League potential as well. And on the goalkeeping front, you might remember Spataru. Apparently, he might have a bit of interest in joining us. Apparently, he's asked to leave the club as well. I'm going to make an offer. He might not get a work permit as well. But if there is even a chance of Setford going, it'd probably be good to get the Plan B goalkeeper potentially on his way in. And equally, if Spataru was able to get a work permit, which I'll be honest, it seems unlikely, maybe selling Setford for £15 million wouldn't be the worst decision in the world. Especially when you compare the two players. Spataru, definitely a better goalkeeper in my eyes. You can see the championship review here, which means if I hit continue once more, we are officially going to be a Premier League club. We were the biggest overachievers. Signing of the season, Tommy Setford was up there, but Jeff Pell won signing of the season for Millwall. That's a very random player to be at the top of this list. Okay, apparently Montenegro wants £51,000. I mean, that's not going to work, is it? Mate, you are currently on £6,000 a week. What makes you think that you're worth 50? No, walk away. He's not even going to get a work permit. Spataru looks like an interesting option as well. Wants a release clause. Can I remove and exclude it, please? Oh, this is not good. This has ended badly. Walk away. Walk away. It was going so well today, and I've had two piss-poor negotiations to end the episode. That said, with one click of continue, we are now officially Premier League. The board are delighted. I'd be concerned if the board weren't delighted with the work we've done. Apparently, they really like the signings that we've made. Season expectations, attempt to avoid relegation. You know what? I think that's pretty realistic. Unfortunately, our link with Man City has been terminated, which is annoying because I still want Volder and Schmidt in. Also, what is our first game of the season? It's Middlesbrough away. That's not a sexy game to start the season, is it? It's not that exciting. No disrespect, Middlesbrough fans. Middlesbrough fans are definitely offended right now. In terms of the season preview, we're predicted to finish bottom. I'm saying that like I'm surprised. I'm not surprised one little bit. Okay, folks, I'm going to end things here for today. I have no idea how long this episode's been, but I've sat down and recorded for quite a long time. I feel like we've made one of the best signings we've probably ever made at Guernsey and Hamay. I think for the price, the quality, there's a lot to like. I know there's going to be people who have question marks as to, is training him to play as a defensive midfielder the best idea in the world? But I think in terms of giving us that defensive base of solidity, which has really been imperative to our success, it's almost essential that he learns to play there. I suppose the alternative would be to move Aboubakari into a deeper midfielder position. but he's not very good defensively, and it's not like he's a deep playmaking kind of player. And whilst Jaime here is not the best player defensively, not by any stretch of the imagination, his creativity is something that can certainly be utilised in a defensive midfielder position when we do have the ball. Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up here. I could talk for days about this team. We've still got another part to this transfer special to come. I know what I need to sign. Let me know what you think of the business so far. What do you think of my general approach? Was I right to offer Jaime £47,500? That's about a quarter of our current wage spend. It is a lot. If you have enjoyed today's video, do make sure to drop a like on it. We're back tomorrow with more Park to Prem action. Until then, take it easy. It's me, Jack, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.